this for a breeze. Woo! Super windy today. So can we just acknowledge that Antibes, France is a very beautiful place to spend a day? I visited here in September 2022 with my tour group, enjoying all things modern art with like minds travel. As part of our bespoke tour, I added Antibes to the list because you can't talk about modernism in the south of France without talking about the big guy, Pablo Picasso. Picasso lived a good chunk of his life in various villages and cities scattered along the Mediterranean coast, especially in the latter half of his life. He spent time in Cannes, in the nearby village of Juan-les-Pins, in Vallauris, in Mougins, and more. But around 1945, he was in Antibes. Antibes has a very long history stemming back at least as a colony of ancient Greece originally called Antipolis, which was then usurped by the Romans. Check out my previous video on the Musée Métis in Nice, linked above, for more looks at ancient Roman sites in southern France. The star attraction and starting point for a lot of Antibes is the Fort Carré, which is a 16th century fortification where, by the way, Napoleon was briefly imprisoned during the French Revolution, and another fun fact, it was also used as the headquarters for the baddie in the 1983 James Bond flick Never Say Never Again. When you walk past the marina and all of those amazing super yachts therein, you'll end up in the labyrinthine old town of Antibes, and this is an awesome place to hang out. There's some really excellent, super high-end restaurants, as well as some great cheap eat places, and everything in between. But our group's main attraction was the Musée Picasso. The museum itself has a long history, and until the 17th century, it was owned by the Grimaldi family, the clan that currently reigns in the Principality of Monaco nearby. In the 1920s, the Chateau Grimaldi, as it is still known today, was acquired by the city of Antibes, where it was then transitioned into an art museum, the Grimaldi Museum. And in 1946, Picasso was offered the opportunity to use this chateau as his art museum. I mean, that's a pretty nice deal. But I guess when you're Picasso, opportunities like this must come up all the time. So for about 2 months, and that's it, 2 months, Picasso set up shop here, and he created paintings, sketches, and more. When he opted to return to Paris in late 1946, he left behind 22 paintings and dozens of sketches, all of which formed the original core of the Picasso collection here. And after many purchases and several donations, both from Picasso, his heirs, and more, you now have the modern-day Musée Picasso, which contains over 250 works by the artist, most of which is from his mature period of the 40s and beyond. You'll see a little bit of everything from this period in the museum, including things from sculptures through photographs documenting the artist's process, to big, and sometimes super famous paintings like La Joie de Vivre that provides a little bit of insight into the artist's subject matter and his personal life, like the mistress who inspired this one, 1946 La Joie de Vivre, or The Joy of Life, which was inspired by Françoise Gillot. This was an intensely productive period where Picasso, who was super in love and inspired by the gorgeous surroundings of Antibes, seems like he was a pretty happy and creatively fulfilled guy, at least for a little while. My group took a tour with a wonderfully informative and really cool guide who led us through the galleries and really expanded our understanding of these works of art. What is cool is that even though, yes, this is the Musée Picasso, it isn't just Picasso that you can see here. While we were visiting, we got to enjoy a temporary exhibition of the works of the Spanish artist Jaume Plensa, who is an artist whose works I really enjoy and whose monumental piece, Nomad, is currently seated at the pinnacle of the fortified walls outside of the Antibes Marina on that long walk between the Old Town and the Fort Carré. And it is a permanent installation that's lit up both day and night, so it's absolutely worth your time if you are in the area. The terrace of the museum also not only has the most gorgeous views of the Mediterranean, but also has a sculpture collection that features more non-Picasso folks like Joan Miró and Fernand Léger. I would say, depending on your level of interest in Picasso, you could spend about an hour or two here. It's not huge, but it's not a tiny museum either. But it is well worth a visit, and then you can either scoot on down to the old center of Antibes if you want afterwards, which I highly recommend doing. And you know what? The center of Antibes isn't that big either. It's kind of like in my previous video on the Fondation Met and the sweet little town of Saint-Paul-de-Vence. These are great places, but you're not necessarily going to need a ton of time there unless you want to take things super slowly, which is totally cool too. But it is definitely worth exploring around those windy cobblestone streets. Okay, this is not a bad place to spend an evening. I am walking on the ramparts overlooking the old town of Antibes. It's pretty nice, I gotta say. Maybe I should live here.